if anybody takes anything out of this episode, if we can add any value, I really, my biggest takeaway in life is being a combination of curious, intentional, and consistent. And I feel like the more you pull on those three levers in a combination, and it's not always perfect, it's not always perfect synergy or harmony, but the more you pull on those three levers, I really believe you can achieve anything you want.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Norm podcast. I got a special guest here today, taking time out of his travel schedule. Been excited to get this guy on for a little bit here. Michael Ketchen, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Anytime you can get two gingers together is dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous, man. Gingers unite.
Yeah, and like I said, we're actually getting ready to take off to Puerto Rico here for the new year. So I'm not my regular.
Sweet.
I got my wife's beautiful artwork behind me here. So.
That's awesome, man. Hey, it's gonna be a lot nicer in Puerto Rico than where I'm at in northeastern Ohio right now. It's just, I think we got 10 days of gray coming. So actually probably about 3 months of that, but yeah, man, we met through a mutual friend, John Farling, another real estate guy. We're both in real estate, and yeah, I got the chance to hang out. It was about probably a little less than a year ago at a Cavs game, which was a great time when they were in the playoffs there. So, yeah, enjoyed getting to hang out that time and knew, hey, this guy, he'd be fun to have on the podcast. You got a great story. So, why don't we jump into a little bit of your background, how you got into entrepreneurship, I know you're in real estate, but, yeah, just that journey there.
Well, I even want to kind of highlight something like you just said there, Jimmy, because it shows the importance of showing up and being present. That Cavs game led to one of the best deals we've ever done that night.
Nice.
So just being in that room, putting on that organized event, shout out to our good buddy, John Farley, for putting that together. That's a deal maybe we'll get into a little later on in the pod, but if you remember, I invited someone who was my insurance broker from out there in New York. He connects me with a buddy of his. We bought this 36-unit multifamily building in Virginia that's on a triple net master lease because that guy's doing sober living through Medicaid. So it's my best pure cash flow deal. I mean, day one, I'm clearing $30K a month on that deal.
That is fantastic, man.
And if we don't go to that event to network, so we talk about mindset and being present, if all those dominoes don't fall, I mean, that's how deals happen.
Yeah.
So perfect example, it was great meeting you, great meeting everyone else out there, but that's why it's important. And, that's a perfect segue into my story. I was not an entrepreneur. I did not come up, in a wealthy family or anything like that. I was actually pretty financially illiterate for most of my life until I was in education. I was a teacher, and the principal I had at the time, he had made me the dean of students, and he saw something in me about the way I was good at problem solving, my urgency, my ability to move. And we successfully turned around to high school. And when we did that, I kind of felt like the mission was accomplished, right? So we were kind of looking for the next challenge. And my wife and I said, hey, what if we flip the house? And we talked to our now business partner, but one of our good friends, and we said, yeah, maybe we'll just do that. So I'm Googling, how do you flip a house? We started trying to look at stuff, trying to figure it out. We had a friend who was in it at the time, picked his brain, and stumbled across the Bigger Pockets podcast. And it was life-changing because we finally found the house we were going to flip. This thing, 4,000 square feet, devil graffiti all over it in this affluent town up in Maine, Kennebunkport, Maine. But that podcast changed our life because as we were doing it, they kept using this thing called the Burr method, the Burr. I didn't know what the Burr was. We're calling all these banks. We're trying to figure it out. And in the middle of fixing this first house that we're bootstrapping, we found a bank that would do the quote Burr method for us. And to this day, we still own that house. And that led us to the journey where we are today. And it's been a wild, 7-year ride at this point now.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so many people, I've talked about it on the podcast. I talked about it with John before. Bigger Pockets is like game changer for everybody. It gets you in the door. It gets you the baseline of everything. And then usually people just, take off from there. So that's where I point. Anybody talks to me about real estate, I'm like, dude, start at Bigger Pockets, get a foundation, and it'll keep you going. So
100%.
So you flip that house, and I know you're doing more than house flipping now. So kind of talk a little bit about that journey. You can as little or
Man,
as much as you want to compact
man.
it.
So we, like I said, we still have the house that we burned it, and that house again. Back to the power of networking, being present, and what I'm really big on. And if anybody takes anything out of this episode, if we can add any value, I really my biggest takeaway in life is being a combination of curious, intentional, and consistent. And I feel like the more you pull on those three levers in a combination, and it's not always perfect, it's not always perfect synergy or harmony, but the more you pull on those three levers, I really believe you can achieve anything you want.
Yeah.
And for us, we got that first bird property. It was just, hey, we're going to do a thing. And I mean, we're taking out SoFi loans, we're taking out HELOCs, Matt's parents loaned us $50K. I mean, we didn't even know what the hell we were doing, but we figured it out. We bought it right. Come to find out we bought it great, which is what set us up. But in doing that, by putting that out there, that led to why that was under one of the guys we hired off Craigslist. Craigslist made me a lot of money. Hey, I know about this property down the street. So we scooped that one up. At the same time of finishing this one up, had no idea what we were doing. Those two properties, we still own them today. So this shows you about the power of assets. We bought the first one for $300,000, the second one for $185,000. Today they're worth a combined, I think, $2.5 million.
Amazing.
So it's been some good returns. The market's been good. But in doing that, my wife's mother is a real estate attorney. She's our lead counsel. And I think at that point, she started to see like, man, you guys might have something here. You might be a little bit more serious than I think she thought we were going to be. And when we burned that first property and we got that first check from the bank where we got to keep the property, Airbnb it, and we got a check in six-figure check on a cash out refi. I had never seen that kind of money in my life at that point. Yeah. So I was like, all right, we're going to do this. Well, she said the next moment that really changed our life and the trajectory of our life. She said, hey, I got a client because she's in real estate. He's trying to sell an apartment building. He can't find any buyers. You guys think you're ready for it? And we said, sure. How hard could that be? It was hard. We bought a 13-unit apartment building. And we had no money. So we went back to the banker with it. Thank God at the time they just played ball. They let us use those same first two properties we had bought just a few months prior. And they allowed us to cross-collateralize and use that as a down payment for the most of it. And we bought a 13-unit building. And we were just off to the races. And ignorance is bliss. And this goes back to, if you think about, again, that intentionality, that curiousness, and that consistency, we were being intentional and we were being consistent and we were being curious to varying degrees. Thank God we were also blissfully ignorant, because I think if we did the hard work at the time, we wouldn't have done it. But fast forward, that first multifamily has led to about $100 million multifamily portfolio we own and operate today. It's mostly us on it. We have done a few syndications, but we're more tied to the equity, the long-term cash flow, and true value add. And that's kind of where we make our money on now. I say real estate investing, in my opinion, is all about finding an inefficiency and making it more efficient. And the more efficient you make it, the more handsomely you're rewarded.
Yep. Dude, that's a great saying. Cause yeah, it's all about just finding that, where can I add that value to, whether it's being managed poorly, it hasn't been updated in a long time, like rents are low, whatever it is, and pulling that lever, getting the value out, and then just, and it's not sexy. Like everybody, a lot of people, they see the shows on HGTV or they hear your story of like, oh, this guy flipped this house and, got a 6-figure check, but it's a lot of times it's just doing the dirty work and then sitting and waiting and letting the market and time do its thing.
Oh yeah. And back to, there's so many pain points that went through those lessons, but even I just want to give people like a real world tip, and actually have a social media video coming on this, because I thought it was the coolest thing, because I'm a real estate nerd, and Jimmy, you'll probably appreciate this. We're looking at all of our T12s. We're doing deep dives, and one of the building we actually were about to buy when we were in Cleveland again when we met. We're coming up on that year stabilized where we're going to refi and all that stuff. And there were a lot of inefficiencies, but now because we've grown so much, we have employees here. I was trying to show them, right? But they're like the little kids. Sometimes they got to burn their hand to realize the pan is listen. So you were talking about non-sexy. I called them all in the other day because I thought it was the coolest thing as a real estate geek. Toilets, right? I go, guys, remember toilets? Remember when I was obsessed about toilets? They said, yeah, we remember. What do you mean? I pull out my T12, my trailing 12 months, and I look at the water bill. The first 4 months we owned the building, I show them how high the water was. I decided demanding we upgrade all the toilets fast, even ahead of rehab of the units. We went from old 1980s toilets to now, less than 1 gallon. And they're like, man, you're crazy. Why are you doing that? I said, just trust me. Last 4 months of the T12, we've cut the water bill in half.
Dude. Yeah. And what people, if you're listening, you don't realize what that means. I mean, obviously you're saving money, but every dollar you save adds to the value in
Magic
commercial,
formula.
adds to the value of the building. So,
Oh, yeah. $400,000 in value created at a 7 cap.
from toilets,
Yep.
dude, that's freaking cool. That's so cool. Like that, and that's the stuff I love about real estate. I have a similar story. We had bought a 20 unit building. It's not as I don't know how many units was that one that
60.
so, okay, so a little more scale to get that jump, but this guy was renting his water heater, so he had the rents were low, and then he was just like, and it's nice. He was older, so he could just, if water heater went bad, he just made a call, but he was paying $600 a month for these water heaters. I'm like, I could buy a new one every month and have it, where you're saving a little bit on a phone call. It's more hassle that he was saving, but we eliminated that, and yeah, I think it raised the value of our building like 75 grand. So,
100%.
yeah,
Go back to what we said a second ago, right? All you're doing is taking something that's inefficient
yes,
and making it more efficient. And
yep,
that's what I also, it's been amazing to see how much education, we talk about mindset, how much education is translated to real estate. And all it really is problem solving.
mm-hmm.
And what I love about real estate is you get rewarded. Now, there's risk to it, but you can get rewarded quite handsomely if you're a good problem solver. And it's like playing a game, man. I feel like I play Monopoly every day. I love it.
Yeah, I know. It keeps it fun. It's always something different. And you have, like you were saying, you have a lot of ability to pull different levers, like swap toilets out, raise rents, charge for insurance, whatever it might be. There's a lot of levers that you can try and pull. But you're right. At the end of the day, it is risk, and a lot of people just can't stomach it. A lot of people, they get scared of that risk, or they get scared. They hear your cool story of buying a house or buying an apartment, doing that, but then they hear the horror story from the guy who, had the toilets back up or whatever it is. So,
isn't that funny? Everyone in real estate is always like, but all those late night, I don't think I've got one late night toilet call, and it's like, people are fucking idiots. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's PC way to say it or not, but
no, it's the truth. A lot of
times on risk for a second though, just because that's what
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe I'm not that smart, and maybe that's what it comes down to. But I've never understood, because when I got on education, I caught a lot of this from everybody, and I never understood risk. So you think risk is betting on yourself, buying assets, starting a business, and taking total accountability and control of your life. You think that's risky. What I think is risky, especially in this AI world, this woke culture, all this other things you got to deal with, is showing up, someone else telling you where to show up, how to show up, what to do. Things change, the economy changes, rug is pulled, and you look back and you realize I had these handcuffs, sometimes even golden handcuffs. But I think about it like this. If your income is transactional and your time is not your own to control, I think that is the riskiest combination in the world.
Yeah.
That's just my
dude, that is fantastic. And to add to that, your future hope is that job's going to stay there, but also like, well, my company's putting in for my 401k and I'm contributing to 401k, and you have no idea where it's being invested. And in this day and age with, Elon Musk can, fart and Tesla stock goes down 10% or up 10%, who knows, or he smokes a joint on Joe Rogan's podcast and it dips 10%, I think. So, but you don't know where that's invested, and you're just hoping that
you can't touch it.
30, you can't touch it for 30, 35 years, and depending on your age. And you're hoping there's going to be this nest egg there when you retire, if your job's there the whole time, if you stay healthy, all that stuff. I agree. That's, to me now, I didn't understand it like you, but now I see that that's way riskier than betting on myself and going buying assets and holding them and controlling.
Yeah. I tell people, and the rules of the game can change, but the way the rules are written right now, we're a debt, fiat-based currency society. Assets appreciate. They lie to you about inflation. They change everything in the CPI. And ultimately, hope is not a plan.
Yeah.
And, your 401k, just zoom out for a second. That's what I tell people about the 401k, the biggest scam in this country going right now. Let me get this straight. Find me something in your life that you think the government does well. You won't. And then you turn around and give them control of your finances for 35 years, that if you want your money, you get penalized to take. And then, by the way, when you pull your money out, it's going to be taxed. Do you think taxes are going up or down? Back to that government efficiency, right? So, and this is what kills me, because, it drives me up a wall, because everyone goes, the game is rigged. I don't think so. I think the game is rigged in the sense that people accept thinking they're worth what someone else tells them they're worth. And, I remember when we connected, you had I think it was the granite countertop business, correct? It was that.
That's what I did prior to real estate.
And I loved your story in the sense that it was an entrepreneurial spirit, and you still understood, hey, I've got to make another move. Similar to myself with education, right? Everyone educated, pension. None of these guys are adjusting for inflation. The scarier part is all these government workers, these state workers, everyone's like pension. I go, well, some pensions have gone bust, right? Oh, they can't do that. Then you send them the articles. You send them the facts, and they head in the sand, and it's easier to hope and avoid and then play the victim after the fact, because no one wants to take extreme ownership. No one wants to take accountability for their own life. And then the best part, Jimmy, that's a pet peeve of mine, as you know, when you do make it and you're celebrating, the same motherfuckers that didn't want to take the risk are now telling you, must be nice. God, right, it is.
Yep. Yeah. It is nice. But it is, man. They look and they think we drank some magic potion or got something handed to us. And it's like, no, I took the risk and I bet on myself, which why don't we dive into that now? That's a saying you've had. I've heard you. I've full transparency, I've stolen it a few times. I haven't taken credit for it, but I've stolen it and used it because it's so good. I mean, it's a quick statement on basically how I've felt and what I've done and what I've, and you've just kind of, you need to trademark that thing. But it's something you say. I watch you on social media, talk with you, but bet on yourself. When did you come up with that? When did that, kind of stick for you or like become a thing?
We started saying it as kind of like a core value a couple of years ago, but I think it really goes back to when we, at a young age, like I said, I come from a single parent household. I watched my mother work 2 jobs. I had to take a lot of responsibility at a young age for my younger brothers. And I think I always thought about being older. I think I always had an idea about living a life on your terms. And I think for a long time, like I have memories of being younger. Like there was a time, one of me and my good friends, we actually sat up on the podcast, Miguel Lopez. We were like, because he grew up the same way. We're like, well, just how do you make money, right? Because when you're broke, you're poor. You're just, well, what's money? Speaking the language of money. We were looking at being, what the hell were those? The guys on the airport, the runways with the,
yep.
Because they made like $100K, and us, that was so much money. And then I said, no, we got to do something. The education thing happened, and it's exposure. And I was like, you know what? I got around some really wealthy people. I was fortunate enough to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Some things started changing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take total accountability. I'm going to take everything in my life, good, bad, is going to be mine. And I'm going to live a life on my terms. And luckily, this is why I say your spouse is so important. Me and my wife, outwardly, personalities are very different. Core values and foundation, I think we're very similar, and that's why we work and we've grown together. And I couldn't imagine having a business without a spouse like her, because there are stressful days or great days. But I think Betting Yourself was born out of her and I conversations of saying, you know what? We don't want to assume we're going to be healthy when we're in our 60s and 70s. We don't want to wait and do something else We want to go play on our terms and live life the way we want. And honestly, I think I romanticize it sometimes now because it has been a crazy couple of years. But perfect example, like we've got luxury homes around the country. Well, I didn't want to pay for them, so how can I get luxury homes without doing it? Well, go find a burr property, find some creative lenders, and now guess what? You can live at it when you're not Airbnb in it.
Yeah.
So that's one solution, right? That's just thinking out of the box. That's betting on yourself, right? Hey, I want to travel when I want to travel. Okay, what do I do? Well, what if I little things? What if I run all the business through my Delta card so I can fly first class for free? I can do all these things. I can take advantage of the tax code. Betting on yourself. It's all those same kind of nuances. So what I would tell anybody, and this would be my challenge, visualize what you want your life to look like 5 years from now. And I don't mean sitting on a sandy beach sipping a pina colada. That's vacation.
Yeah.
I always say, what do you want a Tuesday to look like? What do you want your regular Tuesday to look like? And it'll be scary, and you might find yourself breathing hard, right? Because sometimes we feel like, can we really get all that? Are we really worth all of that? But write it down and then work backwards. And then what would you have to do today to take the first step towards that 5-year vision of yourself? And that is betting on yourself. And there'll be fucking potholes, and there'll be landmines, and there'll be curveballs, and there'll be forks in the road. But I guarantee you'll be a lot closer to where you want to be if you start doing it. But you got to make that ironclad mindset. And for me, bet on yourself it was like a mantra that kind of like empowered me to be like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Take away the excuses. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And it's taking action, being bold. And the thing I try and tell some people is, okay, let's say your example, you're a teacher, you have that teaching degree, you got a job, they're looking for teachers every day. You go bet on yourself, 2 years, you crash and burn, or 2 years, you have some success, but you're like, I hate this. I like that safety net of the job. You go back to it. And you can rest easy saying, hey, I tried that. It didn't work. I didn't like it, whatever. And now you're back and you never have to think. The scariest thing for me would be to make it to 60 years old and be like, man, I thought about getting into real estate back in my 30s and I didn't do it. What could have been like that? 100%. That scares me way more than taking the leap.
When we went out, when my wife and I went out, and I tell the story before, everyone kept saying, well, what if this doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? We finally just said, well, what if it does work? And you hit the nail on the head. And what we would say is our worst case scenario tomorrow is our best case scenario today. Exactly. And you just go back and you would learn and the soul would be sharpened. And now what I tell everybody, and it's so funny, I tell everybody, figure out what makes you uncomfortable and go a little bit bigger than that. That's where I would start. Mm-hmm. Be intentional. Be curious, and be consistent. I'm going to keep going back to those 3 things.
Yeah.
Because like the one that kills me, right? So when I coach and I do a little bit of coaching, I always have people follow the same activity. And one of the first activities you do is I say, hey, you're going to time block and track your time for 2 weeks. And what I'm doing is it's mentally, people don't realize, and I'm sure just how I've got to know you, we're the same way. People don't realize how much time they actually have. It's that you're running around being busy and feeling frantic. If you slow down and think, right? It's like getting obsessed. All I started to do was listen to podcasts and books nonstop. I put down the Xbox controller, I got off the Netflix, and I got obsessed with something I was curious about. I didn't suddenly gain an extra 24 hours in a day. I just shifted my intentionality. I became consistent about something else that I was curious about. And it just compounds. It compounds and it compounds and it compounds. I mean, listen, we met. I've told the story about mineral rights. I'm still trying to figure out. Hopefully I can get you out to New Hampshire. Because I literally, back to being intentional. I meet Jimmy. He tells me about mineral rights. I went and found the top mineral rights podcast. I ordered a book about mineral rights. I started watching YouTube videos about mineral rights. I took 30 days and attacked this sumbitch. Anybody could do that. That was all free.
Yeah, man.
You know, so it's just how we show up. You know, our actions, not words. We say one thing, we do something else. So
yeah, exactly. And that's something even I'm with you. Like I got rid of, I hardly watch any TV. I'll still catch a game here and there, but I care so much less about sports or all that stuff that doesn't matter really. You know, I'll still dabble in that stuff, whatever, but it's something that you continually have to take action on because, okay, now I'm an entrepreneur. I did all those things. I got the business going, but stupid things in the business can distract you, or you can be focusing on $20 an hour things when you need to be focusing on $1,000 hour things. So it's not something that,
or $1 million an hour things.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something you it just evolves over time, and you got to continually fight to keep that your attention where it needs to go.
I think you
Where
also got to get in the room with
yeah,
different people who are thinking. One thing that I wasn't aware of when I first started that I would push anybody on now: get in the room with people who are thinking so much bigger. Like every time I feel like the fishbowl gets tighter, like I'm starting to think I'm a bigger fish in the room. I got to go find the next ocean. I got to go. Where are people just levels ahead of me?
yeah,
Because it makes it real and it challenges you, right?
yeah,
That's continuous growth. And, I find the more successful we become, the smaller the ego gets, which sounds weird, but it's like, it's inverse.
mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, dude. You realize, yeah, you may be doing good, and your high school buddies may be like, "Dang, you're must be nice," but then you know where these other guys are at, and what
Yep.
other people are doing in life, and you're like, "Man, how do I get to that next level?" And that's another thing I wanted to hit on is we can't say it enough is getting in the rooms, because like I think you said it early on, you got inspired by somebody in a room. And that's the same thing that happened to me. I went into my first mastermind ever. And I want to talk about, the 52 when we
Yep.
kind of roll that into this. Cause I'd been to conferences and different trainings, in my past jobs, and, may have spent, either the company sent me or I may have spent, I don't know, a couple $100 on a conference or something like that. And I went to my first real estate specific mastermind. I think I had 35 units. And was kind of like, man, how do I get, it was all small multifamily. Like, how do I get to that next level? So I think that thing was three or $4,000. And I
Yep.
remember like, oh my gosh, how am I going to drop $3 to $4,000, ton of money? Like, how am I dropping that on 2 days? Like 2 days to be in a room with somebody that's doing thousands of units. And it, the act of doing that was probably bigger than what I got out of the mastermind.
Yep.
But then going to the mastermind here, and this guy's got 350 units. This guy's got 1,000 units. This guy's only got, he's just trying to get started. He's got 5 units. I'm like, okay, like I could even help add value to this guy. But,
Yep.
that inspiration, and then just those couple nuggets, just takes you to a new level. And then it also, like, hey, the mistakes I might have made from A to B, that shrinks to this, and I can get to C a lot quicker because I just learned from all this guy's mistakes, and can avoid some of those roadblocks. You're still gonna run into stuff and hit stuff, mental roadblocks, all that, but getting in the room with people, just like you were saying, doing bigger things to inspire you, to show you what's possible. And 9 times out of 10, you said it, maybe I'm not that smart. I never, like, I mean, I'm not stupid, but I see these guys doing, some of these guys that are like doing bigger things than me. I'm like, there's nothing special. There's nothing, there's nothing special about them that limits me from getting to that success.
They're just squeezing the trigger with a bigger shell.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yep. And that's what's been eye-opening. The more we've started to spend on education, so the first few years it was just all self-taught. And I think that's kind of where your foundation can come from. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I think I got a good friend who started with his dad before we did. His father was a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. He didn't have the time. He was older. He had the resources. So he skipped, like, right, pay to play, 25 grand syndication courses, but like actual hands-on good ones. Boom, scale. Fine.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. We had our time and our effort. Now, in the last year and a half with what I've spent on mastermind education, we've doubled every year. And this year, for what I think is coming in 2025, and what we've kind of the way we've positioned the chessboard, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to get going. But I think it is. I'm saying this to everybody: if we don't buy / start to develop at least $100 to maybe $200 million worth of property this year, I fucked up somewhere. And
Nice.
you heard at the start of the call, 7 years in, we're at 100 million. But it goes back to what you just talked about. It's getting in the room and now getting the roadmap. And also for me personally, I can't speak for everybody else. I'm big on exposure. I need to know a person who's doing something that I've thought about doing. But now, like, I know, like, I can call that person. That person's in my phone. And it's like, okay, like now I can do this, right?
Yeah.
So for what we think is coming, real estate's kind of funny. Everyone keeps saying, I've been waiting for the bubble. I've been waiting for a recession. I've been waiting for distress. Well, we're a year into it, and all those people kind of still waiting. So I don't know what they're waiting for.
Yeah.
And I think 25 is going to be what I think is going to happen. I don't know if we'll get into this or not, but I think 26 we're going to start to see some real stabilization. But I think 25 real distress. So we're trying to buy at a steep discount from banks, REO. We're also trying to develop because of what we see the opportunity in New Hampshire. And what I got out of those masterminds, that education, is understanding how you have to structure your organization, because you have to create leverage on yourself. You have to spend all the time in the visionary role and much more time delegating every task. And if you want to, at least for the goals I have, right? I want 7 figures a month. I want to be able to go on the plane when we want. I want the ranch in Montana. I want these things and I want them. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take every risk I got to take to do this, along with our philanthropic efforts, our charity, everything. We throw it's funny, talk about betting yourself. I'll send you the link for you listeners on IG. We're doing something cool this year. I'm going to break news on the podcast. Look at this shit. We're bringing back the golf tournament with PGA Hope. But we're doing it this year. We want to raise 50 grand. Last year we raised 25. We're starting it with some custom Army Bet on Yourself hats where all the proceeds go to the charity.
Nice, dude.
All that's rolling out, right? So we've got these big goals, but it definitely ties to education and masterminds. And, who are you surrounding yourself with? Like you said, like, could I go and you could hang out with your friends and family. And I will say that's something I don't think we talk about enough as entrepreneurs. It is, and maybe I'll throw us back to you in your own show. Look at this. I'm interviewing you. Holidays just happen, man. And I find it hard to kind of turn it off. And they're like, you don't want to come off like bragging, but it's like we're about to go from like Puerto Rico to Maui to Montana to Arizona. So they're like, what are you doing in the next month? Well, that's what I'm doing. So I don't know.
Be nice.
Yeah. That's why you got to be around other like-minded people too. Cause like you guys get it, right? Yeah. It's like the average person is just like, what do you mean you're doing that? Well, you don't see all the work behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's so refreshing to be around other entrepreneurs, even people at your same level doing bigger things, because they understand, and people doing more than you are never going to knock on you either. They're never going to be like, must be nice. Cause they remember that they're usually grabbing a hand down, trying to help, like, hey man, I'll help get you up to where I'm at. It's always the people doing less than you, whether it's jealousy, all those things.
Insecurities projecting on you.
Exactly. I didn't take the risk, so I'm gonna talk trash on you. All those things. But it is tough. Holidays, certain family can be tough to, and that's one of the things I learned the hard way. Is this road of entrepreneurship and everything is a lot of times lonely, because until you get in the rooms like that and you get a friend group of some guys you can call, you hit roadblocks and you're just like, am I the only person on the planet who's dealing with this? And my spouse understood, but she wasn't in the trenches as much as me. She was super supportive, but that can only sometimes go so far. So it's like, you need some buddies, some that you can go to battle with, or at least understand the battle you're fighting to keep going. Cause sometimes you're just like, I'm selling everything. At least me, I've had those points where it's like,
I'm selling everything once a week. Are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm not going to do hard money lending. I'm out of here. Leave me alone. So, I mean, we went to Ohio. It was the scariest thing in the world. I'm like, man, maybe we're wrong. Like it's, we're paying $45 a door and it works on our metrics. We're doubling the rent. Missouri, same thing. But are we wrong? Like we are leaving New Hampshire. We're leaving where we know. Now we've successfully cashed out, refied a couple of those properties. So it makes it real. But that was a huge risk to remotely manage multifamily properties from New Hampshire.
Yep.
People thought we were nuts. And then we did it. And I think it's the way most companies are going to go. But I think we're early on it. But it was terrifying. Right? Because it could have blown up in our shit. It still might blow up in our face someday. But, it's it's taking that risk so you get that disproportionate reward, like I said
Yeah.
earlier. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The money's not made. Money's made where there's hard problems to solve,
Yeah.
basically. And I think Elon Musk has some quote about that, but your worth or your paycheck's tied to the size of problems you're fixing. And maybe they're not problems, but they're those inefficiencies like you said earlier, that we spot and say, hey, I'm willing to bet on myself, go take that down and make it better and turn a profit on it. So, so you kind of spoiled getting into 2025 and 2026 predictions. That was one of my questions on. I know none of us have a crystal ball, but just curious, a guy who's in it, and you kind of mentioned a couple things, but just where do you see the market, mainly real estate, maybe we got a new administration starting, just the general market, but real estate maybe specific over the next 2 years.
Well, I think if anybody's waiting for these crazy rate drops, I think you've been looking at the wrong metric.
Yeah.
I think values need to come down, so I think we need rates higher longer. So what I'd advise everybody to do is when you're looking at a deal, stress test it up and see if it still cash flows, and that should be your buy box criteria. I believe you're going to start to see everybody who kind of goes back to what I said earlier about transactional incentives. There were a lot of syndicators, and I don't want to pick on them, but basically, if you were incentivized to make your money on fees and then to make your money on an exit, and you used historically low interest rates that projected 5 years in the future, I think it was irresponsible. And I think that's the way a market cycle goes. We all make mistakes. I've made plenty myself, but I think those type of deals, I know those type of deals because we've offered on some are coming back. I mean, one real world example, because I always like to make it real. We just lost out on best and final. I wish I'd been even more aggressive, but I just didn't know that market enough to push it. There was a bank-owned property taken back in Houston. Booming economy. The broker sold this property 6 years ago at $90 a door. It just traded at $38,000 a door.
Wow.
The gentleman who lost it just handed back the keys on a $600 million CMBS loan, all non-recourse, 43 properties in the portfolio. They're just trying to bank sell all those. Yeah. So the moment is here. So you got to get your capital stack ready. That's why we're doing all the branding. You guys are talking to your investors. You have to have the operations dialed in to be able to execute, because it might be 5, 7, 10 years. Who knows when it's coming? That goes back to what I said at first about stress testing. But then on the development side, and I think it's market specific in New Hampshire, how much, I don't want to tip my hand. So I'm trying to think about, I don't want to tap this New Hampshire.
No, that's fine.
There are a lot of folks coming in from out of state that I think might be overpaying for inferior product because we're so supply and demand imbalanced. So we're actually shifting our focus to redevelopment, because we think in New Hampshire, we can now develop a brand new A-class product for close to the same price that people are paying for C-class product.
Yeah.
So 2 different strategies, but I think there's, again, back to inefficiencies, I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity. And if you want something smaller, say you're just getting started, the strategy I would aggressively be attacking right now, it's really a 3-pronged approach. I'm going to go fast. It seems complicated, but if you got questions, shoot me a message on Instagram. I would be looking at a house hack that has an ADU, and then I'd be short-term rentaling that and operating it to reduce my taxes and my W-2 to quickly get me to financial freedom. Those 3 steps, anybody with a W-2 job can do, and you can increase your wealth rapidly. So those are kind of the things I'm focused on. I know it's kind of a long answer all over the place, but that's just my brain works.
Dude, that's great. That's great stuff. No, that's awesome, man. And I agree. I always talk about I'm glad you made that point of, like, all right, you and I jumped in, and it wasn't overnight, but now we own multifamily. You got a bigger portfolio than I do. But for those people who, all right, hey, I'm willing to take a little bit of action. I don't want to leave. Maybe they like the W-2, and that's awesome. Like, hey, I like being a teacher. I want to stay here, but I'd like to add a little bit of security or income. I realize assets are important. Go get a duplex, go flip a house, go find something with an ADU. Like, there's ways that you can stack a little bit on, so you're not fully dependent on a pension or a 401k being there, that you can have some assets that are going to appreciate over time for you in the future. And just a few will be huge in the long run if you do that. But I still say pull the parachute and get out of there and go all
I
in. But
agree. I agree. And then that goes back to defining your freedom number. But what you said a second ago can't be understated. Choosing to work versus having to work is a very big mental shift.
Mhm.
Um, and if you're in a job where you would choose to go to work and you don't have to, I guarantee you'll enjoy it even more. But like you said, I mean, I always go back to the example, what happens if something happens in the workplace, the CEO steps down, there's a merger, there's so much out of your control. When you give up that control, I'm sorry, I can't feel bad for you. You made a choice to give up. I tell my own staff, hey, I walk across the street, I get hit by a bus. Like, we're actively trying to teach our staff, we're doing lunch and learn so they can learn how to buy real estate.
Yeah.
We don't want them to leave. I hope they work for us forever.
Yeah.
But what if one day me, Matt, and Hannah wake up and decide we don't want to do this? Hope is not a plan. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's just not. So don't put your head in the sand, take accountability and get after it.
Yeah. Love it, man. Yeah. Learn about finance, learn about the deeper, more than just like this check comes in, I pay these things. Like learn about money, learn
The
about
average person does not know that if you're getting paid every 2 weeks as a W-2, your first 9 paychecks go to the government.
Yeah. I heard that stat just like a year ago and it blew my mind.
Some people add it back up. Look where it's going. And that's where I go back to that strategy. You can just to nerd out for a second. It's probably too high level, but go to that ADU. If you, because short-term rentals are taxed as hospitality, it's not passive income, it's active income. If you manage that short-term rental yourself for a year, that will pass through to your W-2 taxes. So let's just say you're making $100K a year. If you buy that house and you rent it as an Airbnb for a year and you operate it yourself, and there's a couple of regulations, check me your CPA, but it's pretty basic. You, in theory, could put the majority of taxes you pay back in your pocket. That's like giving yourself a $30,000 raise with one decision. One decision. I don't know too many people that can just afford to piss away $30K.
Yeah.
You know?
And I would much rather someone keep it than give it to the government.
so they can piss it away.
Yeah. I'd rather piss it away. I'd rather light it on fire than let them piss it away. Oh no, that's awesome, man. Well, that's dude, that's good stuff. I agree. Going back to the market, I'm kind of with you. I think there's some distress. I think people that have been waiting on the sidelines have been waiting for, like, I get asked that all the time. Well, what about interest rates being 7, 8, 6, 7, 8%? I'm like, I don't care. I do not care. Because if I can get the math to where it's all math, real estate's all math. If you don't take anything else either, just know it's a math problem. And if I can solve to 7, 8% interest rates, and they go up to 12, 10, 12, which I don't know if they're going to get there. Hey, then I look like a genius. I got locked in at 7, 8%. And then if they drop back down to 5, 4, which I don't think they're going to go past that, then I refi and I look like a genius because I made it work here. And now it's just cash flowing that much more down there.
Well, it's a question. And I keep asking everybody, and I've yet to find someone with a good answer. I say, okay, give me a reason why interest rates would drop. And they'll always go, oh, the economy, and all they're really telling you is they don't understand the way the Federal Reserve works.
Yeah.
The Fed needs to keep their target inflation at 2%. They need to keep unemployment low. If Trump comes in and the economy rips the way everyone's speculating it's going to rip, well, a booming economy in itself is inflationary.
Mm-hmm.
So what lever, and that's why I thought Powell was actually smart to go ahead and kind of pump the brakes ahead of time.
Be hawkish, yeah.
Exactly, because why, if the economy's ripping, right, what's going to cause those rates to come down? Because if we're ripping at a 7, why would we drop? It's only going to heat up.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of which, and this goes back to history, and again, back to being, again, curious, right? You see the same patterns coming up. These are historically normal interest rates. We were a drug addict addicted to cheap money for 20 years, and they weaned us off. Well, we're coming off the dope right now. And I think we're healthier for it. I think we're going to be a leaner, meaner fighting machine for it, but there's going to be some pain. And you just hit the nail on the head. We have a very simple underwriting model. Stress test the DSCR, see how high you can take that interest rate, and then, how high they're going to go. I mean, could they go to 10? Sure. But if they go to 10, I guarantee it's going to be some great buildings. I'm going to be buying. I know they're going to be buying, So, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. I agree with you. I think it's going to, the economy should, even if it doesn't rip, it should be stable. I think it's going to get better. And use the word I was going to use is I think we're healthier to have 6, 7, 8%, depending on and living in that range versus that cheap money. I mean, it's nice. I would take some 3% loans again, but long term, if it's going to last and be more stable, let's go through the pain and continue on healthier.
And look at the a bunch of factors that aren't being discussed. One, we haven't solved the national supply and demand crisis.
Right.
The reason I love real estate. I mean, there's even tech coming out where you can produce houses faster. But ironically, the thing that annoys us as real estate investors, actually the thing that makes us wealthy, is NIMBYism.
Yep.
And local municipalities ultimately control how you build and where you build, and they don't want it. And it artificially suppresses supply and demand. And then also fast forward, I don't think this gets talked about enough. What does America look like 2 to 3 years from now when all those big chip factories are online? The huge project in Ohio is up and running in Columbus. I mean, all this manufacturing jobs are coming back. If Trump even does half the tariff stuff he's talking about, everything's coming back stateside. What would cause the rates to go down?
Yeah,
I don't understand the argument point.
Yeah. It's going to cause, I think it'll cause, I mean, you said it, there's already the supply and demand are out of whack. And that, like you touched on developing, like, I think that could be a big thing in the next couple of years. Cause where are we going to solve, like it or not? And this will probably get stopped too, is the illegal immigration, people still having kids. We just don't have enough housing. So, that's why I love betting on it too, is everybody always needs a place to live, and they're not building near enough, fast enough to keep up. So that's going to keep rents healthy, more than likely, and only going to drive asset prices up without having the cheap money.
You are in Columbus area, or Ohio, I believe.
Yeah. Northeast. Yep.
Everybody keeps saying, oh, Columbus, rents, Cleveland rents, Cincinnati rents. I challenge everybody. Okay, go look at the construction starts. It takes 2 to 4 years to deliver a project. Everything being delivered on the market right now started when money was cheap. No one, for the most part, has put a shovel in the ground for the last 2 years. Yep. So what is going to start happening in rents again in 26, 27, 28, 29? These buildings just don't go up overnight.
Right.
And it's we're looking at it like, can we make it work today? And can we get to 60 months from now? Because 60 months from now, I believe, like even by some of my C-class stuff in Cleveland, I really believe 60 months from now, when rents are probably, I mean, we bought that building, the rents were $500. We're already getting $1,000. 5 years from now, we're probably going to be about $1,200 to $1,400 a unit. Yep. Someone is going to come in and pay 80, 90, 100K a door. You can go buy right now in Cleveland for 40 to 55 a door.
Yep.
Make a bet, figure it out, and you might double your money in 5 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Who knows? You can also go go to zero.
Right. And we may be nuts. We may be having a podcast in 5 years on failed real estate investing. I doubt it, though. Well, cool, man. Well, I'll wrap this up. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, please find me on Instagram, Michael Ketchen, Ketchen. My company's Commonwealth Collective, LLC. And then, like I said, I'd love to connect on there. I love to talk to anybody. We have a podcast. Please, if you can't, check us out on YouTube, The Michael Ketchen Show. We have a lot of fun. We talk real estate. We talk politics. We talk anything under the sun. It's a really good time. I'm going to get Jimmy out there hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Actually, I was hoping to get you for a show in Arizona because we'll be out there for a few months. I'm trying to set up a studio out there.
Oh, yeah, nice, dude.
Michael Ketchen Show on YouTube. Please give us a subscribe, a like, and a follow if you can, or don't like, but subscribe. We had a couple guys subscribe to comment from Donald Trump the other day. And they still subscribe, so I was happy. We don't have to agree. That's what makes this country great. But yeah, check me out on there. Michael Ketchen on Instagram and The Michael Ketchen Show on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll put all that in the notes. But you also have a little social cigar club. That's what I need to come up for.
Yes. So this is something cool called The Standard. It's a private social club for entrepreneurs, business people, places to hang out, work. I'm a big cigar guy. And I wanted one of our buildings where we said, hey, instead of putting this back out to the market as a generic, commercial tenant, what if we help build that community of like-minded people? And we do a few events a month. Members can come in. We have it fully stocked for coffee, cigars, and really building up that community. It's been awesome, man. Like we'll get 50, 60 people at an event. Everyone, the energy in the room is infectious. And we bring in a lot of people from our network. Like my CPA is doing something in January around tax school and changes in the tax code, and just trying to educate everyone and build wealth and live an intentional life.
That's awesome, man. Adding value. You're adding value.
Right.
While having fun doing it. So,
oh yeah, too much fun. My wife might say.
You can never have too much fun. Well, Michael, I appreciate you coming on. You dropped a ton of value here. I can't imagine if you didn't get anything out of this, just stay at your job and stop listening to the podcast. But can you do your three: curiosity, intentionality, and what was that third one? Consistency. Dude, yeah. That's bet on yourself, add those three, and you're going to go somewhere. You're going to be better than where you're at today. So
believe it. I appreciate you for having me on, Jimmy. Thank you.
All right, brother. Hey, enjoy time in Puerto Rico and traveling around. I'm not going to, I know it is nice, but but you deserve it. So
appreciate you. Thanks, bud.
All right. Appreciate you, man. We'll see you.